Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Management 515. This time, week 6, where we turn our attention to manager competencies, right? What makes you different or great in terms of managers that transform? And managers have teams and people. So then we turn to team competencies, and if we're going to manage team competencies, it would be helpful, and it is helpful, to understand the stages that teams go through in their development, because that's part of a large part what you have to manage. So as you look at the Moodle site this week, you'll see the slides, you'll see this lecture, you'll see a quiz. Much of the quiz is covered in the lecture, so take notes. I also have some additional learning resources I think you're going to enjoy. One is the Council of Elrond. Elrond from the movie The Lord of the Rings. Some of you will be fans, some of you will have heard of it, and some of you not so much. But it's a short clip and really makes the point about Tuckman's stages of team development. So I highly recommend the short YouTube clip. It is interesting. And then I follow up with, hey, since you're managing teams and you yourself might be part of that team, what is it about subject matter experts that is valuable? Why do they matter? It is a different form of power. So it may be part of the manager's power, and it may be part of a team member's power, but it is part of the power game that managers have to understand. So with that, let's get started. This week, manager competencies to kick it off with. So the first thing we look at is, hey, you know what? The thing about managers is, look at me. It's all about me. Well, not really. It's meant as a joke. The primary responsibility of a project manager is to manage stakeholder expectations. And the more apt job title for any manager would be an expectations manager. So in many project contexts or management business contexts, success is going to be defined in terms of various things. Are you on time? Are you on budget? Are you within the specifications that are out there? But when we look beyond those success measures, right, another idea of success for any manager is really one of ensuring expectations of stakeholders are met. So you become an expectation manager and a creator of options type of manager, right? That's what you do. So managers tend to view their jobs as something sometimes less than desirable, right? And part of that has to do with our view on our role, right? Because we're doing, as managers at Transform, the details. We're documenting, we're updating, we're clarifying, we're guiding, we're coaching, we're telling, right? It's very demanding. And so expectations becomes a critical part of your success, right? By changing the outlook to one of expectations management instead of just management, right? Then it can be viewed in a more proactive light by looking at management in terms of meeting expectations or exceeding them, delighting the customer, which includes our team members, right? Instead of looking at management in terms of reporting or conflict management or negotiation, which it's part of all those, but look at it in a positive, proactive light. I think you'll feel good about it. Everything you do as a manager or don't do creates expectations. Every action you perform on a project or a management activity is going to create an expectation of similar actions in the future, by your boss, by your team, by your peers. So you might require, for example, that team members document their assumptions as part of a quarterly cycle or beginning of a project, right? Reinforcing this idea at every team meeting is going to make it easier for you to develop consistent and ongoing management activities. For example, risk management attitudes of the team can be steered. They can begin to take on you, the manager's sense of risk, which you want. You want them to understand your risk appetite, your risk thresholds, because they're making decisions based on your leadership. So reinforcing these ideas regularly means that when you ask for them, expectations management, the team has already been germinating on it, brainstorming on it, considering it. In similar manner, right, actions that you do not perform will also create expectations. As sure as if you did something creates expectations. So, for example, if you allow team members to be late in submitting status reports, well, the expectation is that timely submissions are not important, and it's okay to be late. And I think that can have serious second and third order impacts as a manager. And so manager competencies are many, and they include, this is noteworthy, stakeholder expectations, which requires clear communications, which requires that you are articulately demonstrate and reemphasize what success means for the team. You will always do conflict management, which means you're always negotiating with the team. Those are your basic competencies. And to execute those competencies, you will use these kind of tools. You can lay out a project charter, which can be formal and all about the scope of the work you're doing and success criteria. You can also do notice down here in the bottom right, a team charter, which is all about setting team norms. Let the team decide what is good and what is bad, and go ahead and let them. So this charter is formal, defines success and your expectations and the requirements and the goal dates. This charter, called a team charter, not just a charter, this team charter is all about the team's expectation management within the group. How you're going to, as a team, manage conflict with each other, right? We want to make sure that conflict management is done at the lowest level possible. And you only get involved when it impacts the work or it gets violent, those sort of things, right? But you want the team members to learn to work together. So part of clarifying the scope in the charter is to have your own, what are the requirements for the team? Lay them out, put it in writing. Create a matrix that helps people know who to communicate with. One form is called a responsibility assignment matrix. You could Google that and find good examples. A subset of a RAM is called a RACI. That's much more common, and many people have heard of that. And a RACI, R-A-C-I, if you Google it, you'll find plenty of information. It stands for responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. And that's another matrix. Down the left-hand side, you can put the tasks, and across the top, people's names. And you can put an R, an A, or C, and an I, or several in each box so people know what they're supposed to do. All of this really is part of good communications management, and communications management is 90% of what we do. Risk management, quality management, change control, all of these things become tools for further study, but tools that you should develop as a manager that transforms. Okay? Now, the last part in part one for this week, and then we'll take a short break and come back with Tuckman's stages of team development, are your team. Your team itself has competencies that you need to be aware of. Team competencies are a little bit different, right? And why do we even want to know? Well, because it makes a difference on who we hire, for example. And so team competencies largely center around professionalism and a methodological approach that they take, and some social skills and other personal competencies. That's what we're going to explore briefly now. And so here's a nice checklist, right? The professional competencies, methodological competencies, social, and personal. These make for great team members along the way. And so if I'm looking for professional competence, right, I'm considering the existence of what's their professional expertise, right? What's their ability to implement their expertise, right? Which can be two very different questions. And their willingness to professional commitment, right? It's common nowadays. Relaxed attitude. That can be good. That can also be very negative. You have to assess how someone like this, what you're looking for, and how they'll fit into your objectives. And then we'll take a look at the methodological competencies in your team members, right? Are they knowledgeable about the best possible approach and procedures? And do they have the ability and willingness to put the chosen procedure, the team's chosen procedure, into practice? Again, two very different questions here. The social competence is also very important. What's their ability to perceive other people's thoughts and attitudes and feelings, right? Can they communicate effectively? I just said communication was a manager competency, and we're going to want this out of our team members as well, communication being a two-way street. Do they enjoy and maintain a sense of acceptance with the team? And do they have a willingness to reach an understanding? It's not their way or the highway. And then lastly, we have personal competencies. Oh, let me go back to social. So social, you want to look at that in light of what leadership role and communication I just mentioned. This team esprit de corps, or team spirit, and what is their own personality development, right? Emotional quotient, which is part of this coursework, as we said, is a muscle that can be developed and needs to be developed. It's frankly more important than IQ. Okay, as long as we all follow the bell-shaped curve of IQ, emotional quotient becomes very, very powerful for us. The final one I mentioned was personal competence, right? Are we conscious? Do we have conscious use of these professional and methodological expertise that we have, as well as this social environment, right? Are we able to mix them together, and are we aware, right? And then networking becomes very important in this. So here's an example. You may want to hire an independent thinker. I love an independent thinker. Tell me what you really think. Don't just be a yes person. But that independent thinker is not my goal in my team member competencies. I need an independent thinker who knows what they want to say and will express the facts in their view, but they're balanced by professionalism and good social interpersonal skills, so that even if it's not their idea that accepted, they can get on board and make the team mission a reality. Okay, that's all for part one for this week. Let's take a short break, come back with part two, Tuckman's stages of team development, as we understand manager and team member competencies in managers that transform.